Trends come and they go and they die and they live, and PonyTown is no exception to that. There are trends and everything, and like I said, PonyTown is no exception to that. Today, I want to take a look at a bunch of trends that used to exist in PonyTown that no longer exist in PonyTown. Things that people used to do a ton that they no longer do a ton. So without further ado, let's jump straight into this by first explaining that this is mostly my experience based on playing basically exclusively the 18+ server. If these trends died on the 18+ server and then moved to like a safe server or something like that, then don't flame me in the comments, or rather do flame me in the comments because I love the engagement. But let's talk about rating lines. This is something I have not seen in several years. This used to be the most common thing I would see in PonyTown, or at least somewhat common. You'd see it every now and then, but it would be almost always there. I could come on at almost any time of day, and there would be like 1 or 2 rating lines. And these were these big lines where there was a single person, and there was this huge line in front of them, and the person that everyone was lined in front of would be like, okay, change the hair is like off color, or something like that. Or they'd be like, add shadows, or add shading, or something super generic as a bit of advice to improve the character that they're looking at. And then they would give it a score out of 1 to 10, and usually, at least in my experience, the score would usually be up in the higher limits. It would almost always be like 8 or 9 or 10, even when it was just like a default character, or it was like a work in progress character, so you couldn't even tell what it was gonna look like at the end of the day. I straight up saw like someone give Fez, like the default character you play as, like an 8 out of 10 or something like that. And I'm like, why? What is going on? I never understood the rating line thing, and I've had my beef with them before in the past, but I've grown to like them over time. And then by the time I started to kind of accept it and kind of be like, yeah, it's kind of a neat thing, I guess, it just kind of died completely, which is kind of funny to think about. It's just gone forever, or at least maybe not forever, but I definitely don't see it anymore in PonyTown, and I wonder whatever happened to it. Again, maybe they moved to the safe server or something like that, and since I don't play it, I don't ever really see them, but I don't ever see rating lines anymore. Is it still a thing? Let me know. Now, the second thing on my list is something that I used to see a lot when I first got into the game around, 2018 era or 2017 era, and it was just strangers walking up to you, and then they would sit on you, and then they would stand up, and then they would sit, and then they would stand, and they would repeat that over and over and over again, basically humping you. This was like so prevalent that it was actually in my types of PonyTown players video when I first made that.
Number 1, the Humper. There you are with your little banana, just sitting there, just chilling with your banana, looking all cute and whatever, and then out of nowhere, you're being humped by a stranger.
It was that prevalent. Like, you would find it. Like, you could come on almost any time. Again, I was on the 18+ server, so surely this wasn't something on the safe server, but it used to be so prevalent. I used to see it all the time, and I don't even see it anymore. I don't even see strangers doing it to other strangers. It's so bizarre. I don't know if PonyTown finally cracked down on this and started actually banning people or suspending people that did this, or what happened. Maybe people just decided it wasn't funny anymore or anything like that, and thank goodness it is gone now. But it's just very bizarre to me that I didn't even notice that it went away until I sat down to start writing this video. I was like, hang on a minute. I haven't seen one of those people in a while. Now, I've seen people come up to me and then like lay down next to me or whatever and just like start cuddling me for some reason. Very weird and very bizarre. I don't like it when this happens, but I've seen it a couple of times, but I don't see people actually like humping other strangers ever. It's just not a thing anymore. Maybe it's because I just hang out in an area that they don't go to. I don't know, but I don't see it anymore, so. And number 3 is going to be similar to species and regiments, but it's kind of the offshoot of that. And originally, I was going to have species and regiments on this list because I don't really see them in the 18+ server anymore, but recently in a live stream, someone told me that the species and regiments have moved to the safe server. I have gone to the safe server a couple times since then just to check and see if they actually are on there, and I have seen regiments like the RAF on there before and things like that. And even in the 18+ server, I have seen the DK be a little bit more active than they used to be, so it's something at least. So those are still kind of here to some extent. Species are a little bit harder because it's harder to tell if you're actually looking at a species or not, especially since even when you do find them, they're usually like one by themselves. But with regiments, it's usually obvious because they have like the RAF or like a number or something like that on them. Besides that, they were originally on the list, but Colts is something that I don't really see anymore in PonyTown. Colts definitely are something I haven't seen either on the 18+ server or in the safe server when I went to check for regiments and species. This is kind of an offshoot of those two things, and it kind of makes sense that it died off a little bit. It used to be way more prevalent though. You had stuff like the Order of the Ribbon, and there was this masked cult and a couple of others, but you just don't see them anymore. Or if you do, it's like one player, or like they seen a video about the Order of the Ribbon, and so they decided they wanted to like pretend to be part of it, and so they come on as the character or something like that. But the point is, they kind of just died off, and I don't know if it's because it's a trend that just went away, or if it's because it was kind of difficult to join them, and so ultimately it was just hard to keep them up, and so they just failed that way. I really don't know. I think it could be a matter of like, you usually had to be part of a Discord, and so you had to not only randomly stumble upon this quote-unquote cult in Ponytown, but then you also had to somehow get invited to their Discord server, and then you had to follow strict rules and guidelines and things like that, and you had to do specific stuff to participate in it, right? And so there's a lot of different things like that, and so maybe it's just too complicated for some players, so they decided to just leave, and maybe enough of them started forming that they started leaving because it was taking up too much of the time. Who knows? Maybe these things still exist, and I'm completely unaware of them or something like that. Maybe they just moved to Party Islands or other servers. Who knows? But I don't see Colts anymore. Number 4 is actually one that's rather common, at least recently it used to be, and these days I don't really see it that often anymore. A couple of years ago, or probably even just last year, I used to be able to come on at any point in the day and wander over to docks, and I would see people advertising Anon Whispers. This was a very interesting trend where players would be like, hey, I'm doing Anon Whispers, and what you would do is you would whisper to this player that said they were doing that, and then they would just say your whisper out loud. It would be anonymous. They wouldn't just like include your name to it or whatever, but it would basically be an anonymous whisper that they would say out loud to everyone so that everyone knows what you said, but also they don't know it was you that said it. It was really weird. Honestly, I'm not 100% sure that these were ever real in the first place. To be honest with you, I think some of it was just them saying whatever they wanted to out loud and saying, no, it was Anon Whisper. Someone told me to say that out loud. It wasn't me. Honestly, I think a fair portion of it could have been that. Players probably got in trouble for doing this, not in terms of like whispering a player and then that player saying it out loud. It's more so the player hosting the Anon Whispers probably started to get in trouble, and so because they're saying random crazy shit out loud. I mean, you could see you would see some like really fucked up shit. Like sometimes people would say like something racist or something very offensive or something like that, and so they probably started to get banned or suspended for saying these things out loud, even though they technically are quoting someone else. And so because this person got banned for doing it, this other person got banned for doing it, and then so on and so on. Maybe that's why it died off, or maybe people just decided, hey, this is probably fake. They're probably just saying the most absurd shit ever just so they can say it out loud without repercussions. Who knows? But that's my experience with it. I have done it a couple of times. I have participated in it before, and when I participated in it, I said something about bananas or like subscribe to Skella or like subscribe to Danny Ball Sub or something like that. And then they finally said it, but it took them like several whispers or like several quotes before they got to mine. So I don't know if it's because they were backed up or if it was because they were just making some up and then they realized they're actually getting some now. I don't know. Maybe I should do Anon Whispers one day. Let me know in the comments if I should try that or something. But it's definitely something I don't ever really see in PonyTown anymore, or at least nowhere near on the same level as what I used to. Now, this last one, I'm going to admit, is a trend that died off, but it's more so a trend that died off because PonyTown forced it to die off. And I'm, of course, talking about grass drawing. This is something that you used to be able to do in PonyTown many years ago. Back in its very, very early days, it was basically just a grass field, and you could just tap on the grass or touch the grass or whatever, and then it would turn into dirt, and if you touched dirt, it would turn into grass. You had to click it, of course, but that's how it worked. Now, eventually, as the map progressed and changed and stuff like that, they changed it so that you can only change if you're holding a shovel, and then they changed it so that you have to do it only to grass, and you can't do it to dirt paths. But if you touch grass and then if it turns into dirt, you can turn that dirt back into grass or something like that. Basically, you couldn't affect the actual paths themselves, and then eventually they changed to where, like, when you do click on something to turn it into grass or dirt or whatever, it would turn back to itself after like a few seconds, and then slowly but surely PonyTown updated and slowly phased out this ability to edit the grass at all. Now, of course, this is something you could do on the main map. Obviously, on the party island, you can adjust the grass however you want to. You could turn it into wood or stone or whatever, but this is something that you used to be able to do on the main map. And it makes sense that PonyTown would eventually get rid of this because you could literally draw whatever you wanted to. People would draw dicks in the grass all the time, or very inappropriate images or whatever else in the grass. It was also cool too though, because sometimes you would see very interesting art, like these crazy geometric shapes and stuff like that, which I personally really love to do. Another thing I used to do is I would draw arrows pointing at people that I was talking about to my friend or something like that. But it was a whole thing. You could draw in the grass and it was a fun experience, but at the same time, kind of a negative experience because of what people would put on there. Now, of course, people would draw, like literally write inappropriate language on there as well, so that was a whole thing too. But ultimately, it doesn't exist anymore, and it makes sense that it doesn't exist anymore. And this feature being removed and phased out is kind of, in my opinion, proof that PonyTown will never allow you to edit the main map or write in a book and put it in the library or do any number of those kinds of things. Even probably on your party island, you'll probably never be able to do these things, and it makes sense because they have the data from back in the day that if you give players the ability to draw or something like that, it's gonna go badly. But that is the last one on my list. Are there any other trends that you're aware of in PonyTown that have kind of died off? Things that you used to see all the time in PonyTown that you don't anymore? Now, I'm not talking about like fandoms or fandom groups or like cosplays or anything like that. I don't want to talk about any of those. But if you do have any trends that you used to see that you don't see anymore, let me know in the comments below. And as well, while you're down there, why don't you tell me about some of the trends that you're currently seeing in PonyTown? Things that are very trendy to do. For example, on my list, I have like bread lines. That's kind of a very common thing that people do. Let me know if there's anything else that people really love to do in PonyTown all the time and could be considered a trend, because I'll make a sequel video to that once I have enough. But for now, that's going to do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and doing all of those wonderful things like that. Because when you do wonderful things like that, not only do you get access to wonderful content such as this, but you also get to become wonderful yourself, and I think we all want that. So do those wonderful things, and until next time, stay wonderful.